Hey, welcome to our channel. Make sure to subscribe and turn on the bell so you never miss our latest content.
I was clearing out the last of the day's emails when my cell phone vibrated. It was late afternoon, already that soft, golden hour when the city outside my window seemed to sigh in relief. My mind was already halfway home. I was thinking about the aroma of roasted chicken and rosemary that would be filling our kitchen, thinking about Alara. Almost every Tuesday, we had dinner together. Just the two of us. It was our routine, and I trusted routines. They were the steel framework of my life. Predictable, sturdy, safe, but the message that lit up my phone screen, it made that entire framework crumble into dust. In seconds, your best friend just walked into your house, and your wife greeted him with kisses. They're betraying you right now. I stared at the words, just stared. The text was a cold, black stain on the bright white screen. It was an unknown number, no name attached. My first thought, a desperate grasp at logic, was that this had to be a prank. A sick, nasty joke. Someone trying to stir up trouble for the sake of it. It had to be. But something inside me shifted. A cold knot formed in my chest, heavy and tight, as if that anonymous message had found the one hairline fracture in my carefully built structure and hammered a wedge right into it. My keys. I fumbled for them on the desk, their jangle sounding unnaturally loud in the quiet office. I rushed out, not even a word of goodbye to my coworkers. Their faces were a blur. The drive home was a nightmare played out behind my own eyes. I wasn't really thinking. Not with logic, anyway. My mind was a loop, a single, searing image. Alara and Reese, together, in our home, in the place that was supposed to be mine, ours, alone. Chapter 2. The scene on the porch. When I turned onto our street, I parked the car carelessly, the tire scraping hard against the curb. The sound grated on my nerves. As soon as I got out, my heart stopped. There he was, Reese, coming out our front door. The smile on his face seemed so grotesquely out of place, so cheerful it felt like a personal insult. And Alara, she was at the door, waving lightly, as if saying goodbye to any ordinary friend after a casual afternoon coffee. That simple, domestic scene. It hit me like a dry punch to the gut. It stole the air from my lungs. What are you doing here? The words came out of me, sharp and cold as I walked towards them. Reese looked surprised, but his voice was infuriatingly calm. Hey, man, I just came to drop off a package. For Camila. It was on my way. I stared at the two of them. My heart was a frantic drum against my ribs, and I could feel my entire body tense up, coiling like a spring. Alara's face was a canvas of confusion, her brow furrowed as she tried to understand what was happening. And you, Alara? I asked, my voice dripping with an anger I didn't try to hide. Are you going to say you didn't know he was coming? Julian, for God's sake, what are you talking about? Her voice was laced with disbelief. He just came to leave a package Camila asked for. It was quick. She took a step toward me, her hand outstretched. I flinched back. Quick? The word tasted like poison. Why didn't he just leave it at the door? Why did he have to come inside? Because I asked him to, Reese interrupted, his calm tone starting to fray. I thought it was better to deliver it directly to her. You thought it was better? I took a step toward him now. Since when do you make decisions about what happens in my house? The tension between the three of us thickened the air. It was suffocating. Reese maintained his composure, but I could no longer pretend. I couldn't pretend everything was fine. Every word they said, every confused glance they shared, only seemed to inflame the fire roaring inside me. Alara insisted, her voice pleading, that there was no reason for this, no reason for suspicion. But I wasn't really listening anymore. I want you to leave, I said, my gaze locked on Reese. Now, my best friend. He hesitated for a second, his eyes searching mine for an explanation I wouldn't give. Then, he just nodded slowly, turned, and walked away. I stormed inside. Alara followed, trying to talk to me, trying to reason with a man who had lost all reason. But I had no patience left for explanations. I dropped my briefcase on the couch with a thud and turned to face her. How could you do this to me? Julian, for the love of God, are you hearing what you're saying? Her voice broke. I would never do that to you. Ever. Where did you even get this insane idea? I received a message. I spat the words out. They said you and Reese were together. Here. In our home. And then I arrive. And what do I see? I see him walking out your door, as if nothing happened. It's too much of a coincidence, Alara. A message? From whom? I don't know. An unknown number. Her face fell. Disappointment washed over her features, so profound it was like a physical blow. And you believed it, she whispered. Just like that. You believed it. What else was I supposed to do? I yelled, the question hanging in the air, hollow and weak. She started to cry then. Softly at first, then with deep, wrenching sobs. She said I was jumping to conclusions, that I was destroying us for no reason. She swore on our life together that there was nothing between her and Reese, that the very thought was absurd. For a few seconds, I stood perfectly still, my breathing heavy and ragged. The sight of her tears did nothing to cool the furnace in my chest. Then I turned. I walked to the bedroom, pulled a suitcase from the top of the closet, and started throwing clothes inside. Shirts, pants, socks, I didn't care what. Alara followed me, her voice a desperate plea, begging me to stop, telling me we were throwing everything away over a terrible misunderstanding. Are you really going to leave like this? She cried, clutching my arm. You're going to throw away our marriage? Because of a text message? I need to think, I said, my voice flat, devoid of emotion. I pulled my arm away. I need to breathe. This has all turned into a nightmare. I zipped the suitcase shut. I walked through the living room without looking back. Alara stayed at the door, her crying turning into a choked whisper, telling me I was making the biggest mistake of my life. I closed the door behind me. I went down the stairs without looking up. I felt everything I had ever known, everything I had ever trusted, collapsing around me. Silently, but devastatingly. And in that moment, I could only think of one thing. If there really was a betrayal, I needed to know for sure. I spent that night awake, lying on the stiff, unfamiliar bed of a simple and cold hotel. I stared at the textured ceiling, unable to relax for a single minute. The weight in my chest felt tangible, a physical pressure that made it hard to breathe. The images wouldn't stop. Reese, waving goodbye to Alara, their vague, defensive responses, her tears. Everything spun like a whirlpool in my mind, pulling me down into a dark undertow of doubt. The silence of the room was an enemy, amplifying every toxic thought. What bothered me most wasn't just the possibility of the affair itself. It was the fact that until that day, I had trusted them. Both of them. I trusted them without measure, without hesitation. My best friend, my wife. Now, I wasn't even sure of my own intuition. The next morning, after a cold shower, I dressed in the rumpled clothes I'd packed and left. I drove without a clear destination, until I found myself heading towards the neighborhood where Camilla lived. I needed to understand the story about the package. It was a detail. A small, seemingly insignificant detail. But in my fractured mind, it made all the difference. I parked, took a deep breath, and rang her doorbell. Camilla answered with a look of surprise and concern. She didn't expect to see me, not so early, and certainly not with such a somber expression. Julian? Hey, are you okay? I need to talk. It'll be quick, I replied, my voice hoarse. She opened the door wider, letting me in. I walked straight into her living room and didn't beat around the bush. I want to know about the package. The one Reese took to my house yesterday. She was silent for a few seconds, as if trying to organize what she was going to say. Then, she gestured with her hand, asking me to sit. The package was mine. Yes, she began, sitting across from me. I was going to take it over myself, but Reese offered. He? Offered? Yes. He just showed up here by chance. We ran into each other, and I happened to mention that I needed to deliver this to Alara. She paused, choosing her words carefully. He got excited, said he could take it, since he was going that way anyway. I told him it wasn't necessary, that I'd deliver it myself later, but, he insisted. I kept my gaze fixed on her. He insisted. Yes, she said, looking down at her hands. Seemed enthusiastic. That word. Enthusiastic. It hammered in my head. Enthusiastic. Reese was never one to get excited about running errands. He was practical, direct. He did what needed to be done and that was it. This didn't sound like him. I stayed quiet, but Camilla continued, her voice soft and full of sympathy. Look, Julian, I didn't want to say this, but I've had my own doubts about the two of them for a while. My head snapped up. I never said anything because, well, it was just my feeling, she rushed to add, as if she didn't want to overstep. I thought I might be exaggerating, you know, but now, with all this, it just seems to make sense. And I'm really, really sorry about it. She looked at me, her eyes brimming with what I thought was genuine sorrow. She's my friend, but certain things, if they're true, they're just unforgivable. I rubbed my face with both hands, my head feeling heavy as lead. Camila's words, they were the final piece. They clicked into place alongside the anonymous text message, the scene from the night before, Reese's strange behavior. Everything seemed to fit together into one ugly picture. There was no proof, not concrete proof, but the collection of details, the coincidences. They formed an image that was impossible to ignore. Camila placed a hand on my shoulder. It was a gentle, comforting gesture. She said she was sorry, that I was a good person and didn't deserve to go through this. But I didn't react to her touch. I was numb, submerged in a whirlwind of thoughts that mixed anger, pain, and a sharp twinge of regret. Regret for not paying attention sooner, for maybe ignoring signs that were obvious all along. I left Camila's house without saying much more. I just thanked her with a short, stiff nod. When I got back to the car, I sat for several minutes, my hands gripping the wheel, without turning on the engine. Flashes of the recent past played in my mind, uncomfortable memories that now took on new, sinister meanings. A silly comment during a dinner with friends, a text on Ilara's phone that made her laugh, one she quickly turned away from me. Everything that had once seemed normal, now appeared under a different light. A light that hurt. I picked up my phone and opened the last conversation with Ilara. There were still unread messages from her. Messages trying to talk, asking me to come home, telling me it was all a misunderstanding. But now, after what I had heard from Camila, something inside me had changed. The doubt was no longer doubt. It was an embryonic certainty, growing stronger with each poisoned detail she had fed me. I dropped the phone on the passenger seat and started the car. I had made my decision. Even without definitive proof, all of this had already broken me inside. And somehow, I felt there was no going back. 2 days later, I was leaving the hotel reception when I received an unexpected message from Reese. It was straightforward. We need to talk. In person, I stood in front of my car for a few seconds, wondering if it was worth it. There was still so much anger, so much wounded pride. But a part of me, a small, stubborn part, agreed. We met at a discreet cafe. He looked worn out, a heaviness in his eyes I couldn't decipher. I don't know what's going on with you, he started, but you're believing something that doesn't make sense. I crossed my arms. It makes perfect sense to me. Sense? His voice rose. You saw me at your house and you've already decided I'm a traitor? That I'm capable of destroying a lifelong friendship? The truth is that you're being manipulated by someone, he said, leaning forward. And if there's any chance for you to wake up to that, there's still time to fix it. His words sounded rehearsed, too calm. I stood up, told him I'd heard enough, and asked him not to contact me again. Trust had been ripped away. Back at the hotel, I thought about Ilara. She kept sending short messages. Are you eating properly? Are you sleeping? I read them, but I couldn't bring myself to reply. As hurt as I was, something still bothered me. A tiny, persistent splinter under my skin. The next morning, I decided to return to Camila's house. She was the only person who seemed to have helped me, the only one who saw things clearly. Maybe she could help me put the final pieces together. I rang the doorbell, and she appeared with her hair tied up and a soft expression on her face. Julian, do you want to talk? I need to know if you're sure, I said, stepping inside. Sure about everything you told me. I am, she said gently. Why? Because the only thing I really had was that anonymous message. I started connecting the dots after that. It was the message that set me on this path. Camila shook her head slightly, a sad smile on her lips. Sometimes that's all it takes. She went to the kitchen, saying she would make some coffee. I was left alone in her living room, restless. I paced back and forth, trying to organize my thoughts, trying to silence that little splinter of doubt. Then, on impulse, I don't know why I did it, I took my phone out of my pocket. I found the unknown number that had sent the message days earlier. My thumb hovered over the call button, and then I pressed it. As soon as I did, a muffled ringtone echoed through the room. I stopped, frozen. The sound, it was coming from nearby. Right here. In this room, I followed it with my eyes, my heart beginning to hammer against my ribs again, but for a completely different reason. It led me to a small corner cabinet. I approached it slowly, a creeping dread washing over me, a feeling that I was about to discover something that would change everything. Again, I opened the first drawer. The ringing got louder. In the second drawer, I found it. A cell phone. A cheap, burner phone, vibrating and ringing insistently. I stared at the device for a few seconds without touching it, my mind refusing to process what I was seeing. On my own phone, I ended the call. The ringing stopped. I took a deep, shaky breath. To be sure, to be absolutely sure, I called again. The phone in the drawer started ringing again. Its screen lit up, displaying my number. I picked up the device, my hand firm, as if the truth had finally, horribly, materialized in my hands. At that exact moment, Camila entered the room with 2 cups of coffee. When she saw me standing there, holding that phone, her expression fell apart. It didn't just fall, it shattered. The soft, sympathetic mask disintegrated, revealing something cold and panicked underneath. I didn't even need to ask. The answer was already in her eyes. But I did anyway. My voice was a low, dangerous whisper. "Was it you?" She stopped. The silence in the room was absolute, stretching for a few seconds that felt like an eternity. Then, she lowered her eyes to the floor. "Yes," she whispered. "I sent the message." I stared at her, my eyes unblinking, my mind reeling. The shock was so profound it felt like the floor had dropped out from under me. "Why?" "Because I knew you'd never see it on your own," she said, finally looking up, a strange, defiant light in her eyes. "I always felt there was something between them. And seeing you, giving so much, being so faithful, so trusting, it hurt me. I knew that if someone didn't show you, you'd just keep living a lie. And why didn't you just tell me outright? As a friend, you wouldn't have believed me," she scoffed. "Not coming from me. You would have defended them. And you thought this was the best solution?" My voice rose, shaking with a mixture of fury and disbelief. Camila just shrugged, a small, dismissive gesture, as if she had imagined this confrontation 1,000 times. But I was somewhere else now. I was no longer seeing a friend trying to help. I was seeing a woman with her own hidden agenda, a woman who had acted with cold, cruel calculation and thrown all of us into a fire she had started. I thanked her for the coffee I would never drink and left. In the days that followed, Camila started showing up more. She sent messages asking if I needed anything. She brought me food at the hotel. She told old stories from our college days, laughing at memories, trying to be a light in the darkness she had created. But over time, her gestures took on a different tone. She started getting closer, physically. A touch on my arm while talking. A laugh that was a little too intimate. Compliments that felt loaded. Until one day, she blurted it out. "You know, Julian, I've always admired you. Always." I looked at her, saying nothing. And then, the realization began to hit me. Hard. That closeness, it wasn't recent. It had been there before all of this happened, a subtle undercurrent I had never noticed. And perhaps the whole plan, the entire, destructive charade, had been born from a feeling much deeper than mere compassion. I started to pull away, but Jessica was persistent, and that only fueled my suspicion, until the moment I decided to confront her again. To end it, I met her for coffee, my expression grim. "I want you to tell me now." With all the words, "Did you invent everything? Did you destroy my marriage on purpose?" She tried to laugh it off, tried to change the subject, but I kept staring, my gaze unwavering. "Confess, Camila." She took a deep breath, her expression changed. The mask didn't just slip, she threw it away. "I love you, Julian," she said, her voice trembling with a terrifying intensity. "I always have, ever since the first day I saw you with her, at that stupid campus orientation. You never noticed me." "Not really, but I was always there." She kept talking, the words tumbling out as if a dam had broken after years of pressure. "And every time I saw her holding your hand, smiling at you, it was like getting stabbed. I couldn't take it anymore. You lived for her, while she treated you like you were just there, a comfortable habit. You're the love of my life, Julian, and I only did what anyone would do for love." The blood drained from my face. I was frozen, pinned to my chair by the sheer toxicity of her confession. I left without saying anything else. I got into my car with trembling hands. My chest felt heavy, crushed by the weight of a huge, irreversible mistake. But now I knew the truth, the entire, twisted truth, and there was only one person who needed to hear it. Elada. I left Camila's house without looking back. My breathing was heavy, my hands shaking on the steering wheel, and my heart was pounding as if I had just escaped something far darker than a simple lie. The image of Camila confessing, her voice saying she loved me since college, that she hated seeing me with Elara, it sounded like something out of a twisted script. The most perverse part of it all was that she had won. She had planted the doubt, she had separated us, she had destroyed everything, all with a single message. I drove straight to our house. My house. I parked across the street and just watched it for a while, trying to gather the courage to face what I had done. When I finally got out, my steps were firm, but my chest carried a weight that felt like a block of concrete. I rang the doorbell and waited. When Alara opened the door, she couldn't hide her surprise. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her face tired, but my presence still stirred something inside her. I could see it. "I found out everything," were the first words out of my mouth. The message, the one they sent me, it was Camila. She confessed everything. Alara stepped back, making space for me to come in, but she didn't say a word. I entered slowly, as if stepping on ground that could collapse at any moment. In the middle of the living room, our living room, I stopped and looked at my wife. "I accused you," I began, my voice thick with shame. "I left you alone. I listened to others, and I was a coward. I let myself be carried away by something that today I see was a trap. I fell right into it. And I destroyed everything we built, based on assumptions and fears." I finally met her gaze. "Forgive me, Ilara. Please, forgive me." She crossed her arms, her voice breaking when she spoke. "Do you know what hurt the most, Julian? It wasn't even that you left. It was that you believed I would be capable of something like that. That after everything, after all these years, you trusted an anonymous message more than the woman who slept by your side every night." I couldn't argue back. I just stood there in silence, hearing every word as if they were blades. "I deserved it. I stayed here," she continued, trying to figure out what I did wrong. "I thought maybe I was pulling away, that I had missed some sign. And in the end, it was all made up, invented by someone you let into our lives. I was stupid," I whispered. "I was weak, and I'm not here trying to justify anything. I needed you to know the truth. I needed you to be the first to hear it from me. And if you want me to leave for good, I understand. But I needed to look you in the eyes and tell you that everything that happened was based on a lie. And that I still love you." She took a deep, shuddering breath, as if trying to contain an explosion, but it didn't explode. She simply said, "Leave, Julian. I need time. I don't know if I can trust you again." I nodded, and I left. That night, I didn't go back to the hotel. I drove to Reese's house. I had to close another chapter. He received me with surprise, but when he saw the expression on my face, he understood. "She confessed," I said before he could speak. "Camila. It was all her." Reese breathed a massive sigh of relief, and I saw a single tear fall from his eye. We just stared at each other for a few seconds before I opened my arms and asked for his forgiveness. The hug was long, but different. We both knew it would never be the same again, but there was respect. There was truth. The days that followed passed with a silence that weighed more than any shout. Alara disappeared. She didn't send messages. She didn't call. Patrick respected it. I tried to focus on work, but everything in my routine screamed her name. The faint scent of her perfume on a scarf I found in my car. The way the pillows were tossed carelessly on the hotel bed. The weak, bitter coffee I made, trying to replicate the way she used to prepare it. Every corner of the day held a different memory. I avoided the places we used to go together. I changed my route to work. I stopped listening to the songs that used to play in the car when she was with me. But it was useless. Her absence was everywhere. On a random night, while I was organizing some loose documents on the small desk in my hotel room, I heard 3 soft knocks on the door. I stood still for a moment, expecting it to be room service. I opened the door without thinking too much. It was Alara. She had a serene expression on her face. No makeup, her hair tied up carelessly. She was wearing a light coat and clutching the strap of her bag so tightly her knuckles were white. I froze. She took a deep breath before speaking. "Can I come in?" I moved aside without saying a word. Alara came in, looked around the sterile room, and sat on the edge of the bed. I leaned against the desk and waited. She seemed to be searching for the right words, as if each sentence needed to be handled with extreme care. "I came," she started, her voice quiet but steady, "because I got tired of trying to erase everything from my mind. I tried. Really. I got angry. I felt betrayed by your distrust. But more than that, I missed you." My heart ached. "I missed your presence," she continued. "I missed our home. And no matter how far I try to distance myself, I keep coming back to the same question." She looked up at me then, her eyes shining. Why would we let something so strong die? Because of someone who just wanted to see us apart. I approached slowly and sat beside her on the bed. We remained in silence for a while, a silence that didn't need to be filled. I messed up so badly, I finally said, my voice cracking. And if you hadn't come today, I'd probably spend the rest of my life trying to figure out how to fix this. Ilera looked at me, her eyes watery. Then stop trying to fix it, she whispered. Just come home. This time, I didn't resist. I didn't hesitate. I pulled her close and hugged her as if the world were crumbling outside, and the only safe place left on earth was there, in her arms. We spent that night together, not needing to discuss anything further. The explanations were given in silence, in gestures, in the simple, profound comfort of being together again. When morning came, I already knew what to do. I would pack my things from the hotel, leave the key at the reception, and go home. Not to the house where I lived before, but to the place where I truly belong. Because in the end, I learned the hardest way. There are mistakes that teach, and there are pardons that save. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss any updates. See you next.